history lesson about the Canal Road. In April 1942, U.S. military embarked on a grand scheme to tap at a local source for vitally needed oil to support its northern war efforts. Bang, bang. Oil existed along the Mackenzie River in Northwest Territories at Norman Wells. 825-kilometer road and pipeline from Whitehorse to Norman Wells was to be built by the U.S. military. This took place 2 months after the start of the Alaska Highway, coming from Dawson Creek all the way to wherever it goes. Where's the end? At least I think it is anyways. The approved budget was to be 24 mil. A refinery was also to be constructed in Whitehorse, which would have been good for the residents. I don't know what was going on there at the time. I'm sure it was just copper mining, gold mining, a bunch of mining. Coal operations in Faro, maybe. I highly doubt it. On paper, it looked simple. The pipeline had to cross over two major mountain ranges, Selwyn Mountains and the Mackenzie Mountains, which are pretty major. These aren't mountains you fuck around with. Laughing at the Rockies. The most isolated parts of the Yukon. Construction was plagued from the beginning. Project exceeded its budget by 5 times. Nevertheless, the road and the pipeline were finished in 2 years. By 1944, the oil was pumping 3,000 barrels a day to the Whitehorse refinery. By March 1945, war effort was wound down. Whoops, we just spent a lot of money. By March 1945, war efforts wound down. The refinery was shut down and the pipeline shut in. 13 months in operation at a total cost of $134 million. Go USA, eh? For the American Army, the project had become an expensive embarrassment, I'd say. The cost to maintain a pipeline in the permafrost-stricken territory was too expensive because when the war effort was over, the U.S. military didn't have the rights to it anymore. It would have went back to the Canadians as beady-eye flabby mouse. And then when it was too expensive to maintain, and the natives aren't big on pipelines, trust me. We talked about it a lot through all sorts of school. Shortly after the war was over, the pipelines, transmission stations, the entire refinery were dismantled and shipped to Leduc oil field, which at the time, Leduc number 1, wasn't even started yet, but it was in the process of happening. If you're lucky enough, and for some reason you're gonna journey, Carmacks, the easy way, up to Ross River, and then I don't even know if the ferry is still open. I haven't been. We went across there, I must have been 14, 15 with my mom in the pilot car at the time. We went to Mac Pass. I don't know if there was a camp of some sort up there. Anyways, we moved a bunch of ATCO shacks out and we were trucking across rivers. It gets pretty rough, but this lineup of Army vehicles is right on the side of the road and you can probably still see it today. But I have heard some rumors that the ferry across the river from Ross River, which is a rough neighborhood, is shut down now. And if you don't want to hit it from, say, Carmacks on, if you're coming from Alberta side, you can hit it right from Watson Lake. Or if you're coming from BC as well, the Cassiar Highway, it kind of is the junction of Watson Lake. You can get on the canal road there. It's not advised, but it's only open seasonally in the summer, and if it's raining, good luck. got the SS Klondike. There used to be an SS Whitehorse. There was probably dozens of these at a time, but most of them were wrecked in the rivers, the treacherous Yukon River. Traveling in between Whitehorse and Dawson City, taking gold rush prospectors back in the year of 1897, 1898. They were probably in use for quite a while. Most of them have been vandalized and burnt down, which is a shame. This is a pretty cool piece of history. There was kind of one in almost every town in the Yukon. Sorry, I'm getting way off track here. I'm getting like history lessons. There's just so much history when it comes to the Yukon that I'm pretty proud of. I miss it a lot, but anyways, back to the trucking. Even though my parents were trying to mold me into probably being a trucker, which is weird, because I eat, sleep, and drank trucking. Pretty much my whole childhood, I was with my dad until I had to start going to school, and that was a scratch and fight to get me to go to school, because my dad was going to work, and I was going to school, and I hated it. I remember it particularly because I have a mind like an elephant, so I remember a lot of stuff. I hated going to school, but yet I went. And then on weekends, I'd go with my dad when I wasn't going to school. Heritage, history. We got all sorts of these floating gold dredges all around Dawson City. They're littered quite a bit, especially around if anybody's watching from the Yukon, the Hunker Road, which is a very popular mining area just outside of Dawson City, in between Klondike Corner and Dawson City. I would get to see all these dredges. We would stop. I would go and play around on the dilapidated gold dredge as a child. Lucky to be alive. But yeah, pretty cool stuff to see. A lot of mining stuff I got to see. Lots of holes in the ground, lots of caves, lots of mines, lots of gold dredges, stuff like that. Lots of old rolling coal equipment. So this here is how you haul a scraper in the Yukon. I haven't seen this get up anywhere else. It's like a Jeep and a cradle for the rear end. Is what you do is you put the bowl down, lift up the ass, throw the cradle under the back, put it down, chain it up, and then you front wheel drive your buggy up the ramp onto the front cradle, which is hooked to the truck, which is a very skookum way to haul a buggy. From what I see, what happens here in Alberta, the Yukon's got it down pat. The rest of us are sucking it, but obviously you can see you need way more wheels in Alberta than you do in the Yukon, so hats off. But this is a steamboat just outside of Fort Nelson. This was the last section of the Alaska Highway to be completely paved. This is when it was gravel with switchbacks, way back. A shit ton of stories. Okay, the story is here. See this Bailey Bridge that is like 900 meters off the tiniest little creek bed because the ravine wasn't rated for a D10. So we had to unload and walk it down. There's a little trail. If you see in the pictures there's a little cut bank trail that goes down. The old man had to take her down, walk it across the creek, up the other side. Kind of sketchy, like supposedly it didn't have cleats on it, so we all know how cats on ice and snow. I do. Sketchy. The old man lived his life like, what do you need done? Okay, it's done. Professionally. Okay, so next here we got Grandpa's D8. This is at Skagway, right on the docks. Then there's a crane right on the docks that had just come along and just right onto the boat. Take it wherever you need. This is probably going, who knows, another mining operation. I got lots of gold, lots of money. But still, you ain't seeing any of that in Alberta. Alright, so we're in the pits of the Faro mine here. My dad's moving a drilling rig that does the drilling before the blasting, which is pretty sick. So we're in the bottom of the pit of the biggest lead zinc mine in the Yukon in the world, supposedly. So they wrote. So I have a little bit of input on the Faro mine. In 1953, Al Coulant and 7 prospectors staked a claim that would eventually become the Faro mine. Coulant had started doing an in-depth exploration around the ore body found in Faro and realized they had hit upon a world-class deposit of lead and zinc ore known as galena, supposedly. I don't fucking know. In 1965, there were 100 men working in the area of Faro. For of you that don't know Faro, Faro's pretty small. So 100 men working in Faro, that's kind of like the same as I don't want to get into details because I don't want to get black flagged. Dynasty Mining joined forces with Cypress Mining of Los Angeles to form the Cypress Anvil. Quickly became the largest private employer of the sector, and by the mid-70s was the largest producer of open pit mining of lead and zinc in the world. Hurrah. For a variety of reasons, Cypress Anvil was forced to close in 1984. The mine changed hands twice to Drone Petroleum, briefly, to Kura Resources was formed and mined until 1990s, which actually one of my friend's dads worked at Kura for a long time. I got to know a lot of stories. He was a heavy-duty mechanic. I could go on for stories for days and days about that guy alone. Sorry. Due to world prices and the Westray disaster, Kura was forced to claim bankruptcy. Anvil Range Mining reopened the mine from 95 to 97, but was an absolute failure. I imagine they didn't get shit done, really, from that time. And is now permanently closed. Reclamation is in the progress. It's probably the biggest cleanup all across the Yukon for a mining site.